depression is normal. First, let me state that. We are human beings. We have highs and we have lows. And it's very normal to also feel sad, dejected, depressed, and allow yourself to grieve or to go through a period of sadness and loneliness or whatever it takes, whatever you call technically depression, where you feel this inability to get up and do anything, you're just not able to communicate, you want to shut yourself off from the world, whatever it is that classifies as depression, it's okay to go through it, but it's not okay to go through it on a constant, consistent basis or when it becomes chronic. Then it's time to seek help. In our country, very little diagnosis and emphasis, Aalia, on depression. Or people just say, ठीक है, सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा, फिक्र ना करो, जिंदगी की stress है, it'll be fine, be happy, count your blessings, think of all the good things you have in your life. But for a person who's actually suffering from depression, it's very difficult to just extricate and eject yourself from that scenario. I mean, in India, mental health is an issue. Depression is, of course, emotional health, and then it's related to the mind, because it's a mind that creates all the problems. Also there are chemical imbalances that take place. I had a brother, Siddharth Mama, who suffered from depression. It was later diagnosed as manic depression, then they diagnosed it as bipolarity, then they diagnosed it as schizophrenia, and eventually he committed suicide. Depression is a very real issue. It needs to be treated, it needs to be looked at, and it does plague us. We had a cousin Shiv also. Even Shiv was diagnosed with depression, and so I understand that depression is a real serious issue. It is something that leads people to even take their lives. It is something that devastates families, that leads you to have a life that's completely cut off, and it needs medical assistance and help. Having said that, I think people shouldn't get into mass hysteria or panic every time they go through depression, because depression is also normal. We are human beings. There is no constant up in life. It isn't like we're only going to go from euphoric state to a state of homeostasis and then go to further euphoria. We are going to have...
That's also big words.
No, so I'm just saying it's okay to go through periods where you feel sad or feel dejected or want to isolate yourself.
Depressed. I feel like people throw around the word depressed very lightly, like, oh, I'm so depressed this didn't happen, or I'm so depressed this, I'm so depressed that. I feel like it's thrown around very lightly, and that's why it's not perhaps taken seriously when it's an actual problem.
So what's the difference between sadness and depression to you?
I feel like depression is when it's over a prolonged period of time where you cannot get, like, normally you're sad for like 5 hours and 24 hours and you're like, oh my god, I'm in depression. I think you're depressed when it's just sad. There are no moments where, or the happy is very short-lived. It's like when the sadness consumes most of your time, if not all, and it's over a prolonged period of time. It's not just like a short...
No, like say for example, if somebody loses a family member or somebody very dear, and you go through a period where it's all about just dealing with it, and it could be a prolonged period of maybe a couple of months.
Then you're in depression. But I'm saying...
But is it wrong to go through depression? Is it wrong to grieve? Is it wrong?
No.
I'm just asking you.
Of course not. But I never said it was wrong. I'm just saying that
I never said you said it was wrong.
Okay, I'm just saying people throw around the word too lightly. I feel like if you're grieving about someone for a day, it does not mean you are depressed. It means you are sad, which is a completely different deal. Not every time you're sad will you be depressed, but every time you are depressed you will be sad.
Yes, but my point is that a certain amount of depression, sadness is normal, but so is a certain amount of depression perhaps, because...
Correct. I'm just saying that depression is not just like, you can't say, oh, I'm depressed just like that.
When it becomes debilitating to your life, you're not able to be productive at all.
You can be sad about something for 5 hours and it can stop you from doing something, and that does not mean you are depressed.
I understand that.
All I'm saying, in my opinion, in my perspective, you are depressed if you are sad over a prolonged period of time, and you cannot be happy even if you want to be happy.
Right, and a certain amount of depression is also acceptable, I feel, because a certain amount of depression... I know that, I never said it was acceptable.
Nobody said it's not acceptable.
I know, I'm just stating because I think for the people out there also it's really important to have a sense of, I mean, maybe it's our perspective on things. It may be valid, may be invalid, but at the end of the day, we are human beings and we are going to go through periods where we are sad. We are going to go through periods of depression. It could be the death of a relationship. It could be the death of a loved one. It could be the fact that business has tanked and, you want to, just grieve it or come to terms with it, and you shut yourself and isolate yourself. And a certain amount of that is, I think, necessary for catharsis to take place. And to just extricate yourself from it suddenly and say, no, I've given you 10 days and now come on, get out of it. I think it's unnatural to spring out because you're just suppressing more. I think it's nice to sometimes get into it, wallow in it, deal with it, emotionally purge it and get back. But if as you said, if it comes to a space where it's completely consistent, chronic, and you are just dysfunctional completely as a human being, then it's time to take medical help and medical attention.
But I feel like that is depression. And if you're sad for a short period of time, then when you get over it, you were sad, you weren't depressed. I feel like depressed is when it gets to the point where you, I feel like
deeper,
even
it's
you,
much deeper.
It's much deeper. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I'm not, when you're saying, oh, this is, and then I extricate myself, I don't feel like that's depression. I feel like that's being sad.
Yeah.
And depression is when it comes to a point where you can't help it even if you want to help it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet
But also I feel like a lot of the time, it's so like, oh, he was in depression, I should have helped him. A lot of people don't want to be helped. Like, I know for a fact that I wasn't depressed, but there was a time where I was very sad for a prolonged period of time, and I didn't want people constantly asking me if I was okay, what was wrong. Give me my space, let me figure my own stuff out, let me get out of it on my own. People shouldn't always be in everyone's, like, a lot of cases they should have been. In a lot of cases, people should be there. But a lot of cases, people need people not to be there. Do not remind them every second of the day that they are upset.
Yeah, you can say that also, but some people come to you and say, I'm depressed, and then they're chronically depressed. You try to help them, and you want to help them, and you can see that they're suffering so much, and they want to be helped, but they can't help themselves. So then, and then you feel responsible if you don't go out there and actually do everything you can in your power to help them or save them. Like my friend who committed suicide, I feel so guilty. I just feel I could have done so much more to maybe change their state of mind, or maybe take them to a doctor, or maybe tell their families to take them, to a doctor. And I think the issue of depression seriously needs a lot of attention. I think, especially if it's chronic, if it's plaguing your life, if you become dysfunctional, if it's interfering with your, with living. I think it's very important to take medical help and assistance.